What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to my vlog, and I kind of wanted to do a follow-up on last week's video with the whole health insurance thing, because I realized I didn't even really talk that much about health insurance as an actual topic, mostly because, so a lot of the questions that revolve around health insurance and coverage and that kind of stuff, like why things are so expensive and all that kind of stuff, really, it's a super duper complicated system. We've made it vastly more complicated than it needs to be, with all this different stuff about like third parties and subsidies and all this kind of just ginormous mess that it is. And honestly, there are a lot of times when doctors and hospitals will make up the costs for their bills like on the spot, just kind of based on who you are and what kind of situation you have going on, whether or not you have health insurance, and there's just all this crazy stuff that goes into it. There's like really not much regulation in terms of the costs of stuff, which confuses the heck out of me. But yeah, there's just there are so many layers to it from my understanding that it's really, I don't know. Maybe I should bring in my brother-in-law who's a doctor to speak more on this kind of stuff. He would probably know a lot better than me when it comes to this. So, hey, Bobby, if you're out there and you happen to be watching this, give me a holler, give me some info here. Maybe I can follow up on this and actually give more info. But one of the things I also kind of wanted to get into, again, trailing off of the last video that I did, was kind of talking a little bit more about the mix of religion and politics and how people view some of that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of I think there are a lot of opinions out there, and a lot of them are not very well founded. Like, there are a lot of things people will say in regards to faith and politics and how they combine or don't combine the two, but they really don't put a whole lot of thought into it. Okay, so for example, to the best of my knowledge, there is nothing in the Bible that says separation of church and state is actually something that God promotes. Yes, there is the line that says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's and to God what is God's, but that is not separation of church and state. Throughout the entirety of like everything, up until Jesus' time, the vast majority of society throughout the world, the church kind of was the state, in a sense. Like, the government operated with a very religious perspective in mind. Look, I'm not gonna push for, a whole bunch of religious people pushing their particular agendas within the political realm, but from an ideal standpoint, being a Christian, if we had all Christians in Congress and they were actually trying to, put laws out there with a Christian viewpoint, I would not say that that's a bad thing. There are all sorts of layers to what Jesus did in the world and, what he was putting out there, because back in those times, it was viewed that, Caesar was Lord of everything, or at least, in the Roman Empire and all that. Like, Caesar was basically seen as God to those that didn't already have any other religious belief, and even to some people that did. So, Jesus proclaiming himself as Lord was a political statement. It was saying, look, Caesar is not the one in charge here. God is. To say that Jesus was not political is entirely false, if you ask me. So, again, the whole separation of church and state idea is not a biblical thought in my mind. But then, kind of like I was getting into last week, there are all sorts of people that claim to be Christians that are involved in politics that aren't exactly putting Christian beliefs forward. Like, they'll use Christianity as their reasoning for promoting some particular agenda that they have, but then they won't use the same Christian spirit and reasoning for some of their other things that they try to put out there. Like, they'll try to ban abortions and gay marriage and all that kind of stuff, but then they won't take that similar Christian worldview and say that we should be helping the people that are in need. And that's very, very clearly a Christian view on things. So if you're not trying to promote the good, but you're trying to suppress the bad, you're not necessarily putting a full Christian view into your politics. You're just using Christianity as an excuse for your political agenda. I mean, really, there's all sorts of things that... Honestly, the problem lies with people. As I've said on a lot of other topics, the problem lies with the people. Any particular political system, as long as it has corrupt people in it, is not going to work to its greatest effect. I mean, you see it all the time with socialism. I mean, really, technically speaking, from what I could tell, socialism was kind of the way the early church operated, as you see it in Acts. It might have technically been more communism. I don't know. I'm a little fuzzy on the distinct differences between communism and socialism, but it was one of those two that the early Christians were trying to engage in. And, you know, the problem with a lot of that stuff as we see it today is somebody who's kind of in charge of the resources and is, you know, dictating what resources should go where, because they get put in that position, they end up having the power go to their head, and then it becomes corrupt, and the resources are misused, and it ends up with a lot of the stuff we've seen before with these socialistic dictators, essentially. And that's the reason why a lot of people in America are so scared of socialism, is because it has been misused, mishandled in pretty much every form that we've seen it. Now, the thing is, to the same effect, or at least to a similar effect, honestly, capitalism, or I guess capitalism is more of an economic structure than it is a governmental one, but still, it all kind of mixes and mashes together to some extent. There's all sorts of crossover and overlap between your economic structure and your political structure. So when it comes to something like capitalism, I mean, ideally, the way it works is, you know, people are promoting their businesses, they're being competitive with each other on a healthy level that helps job growth, it helps keep prices reasonable for things, and, you know, it's all about, like, healthy competition. But the problem is, the way we have it right now, it like, some particular companies are, you know, getting that edge over their other competitors, and thus we see markets starting to not be so level. We have certain companies that are driving up prices for things that it's beyond what it should be. And it's kind of almost to some extent what we see when it comes to healthcare, because there's nobody there competing with each hospital saying that, you know, here's what the price should be, but then another hospital is coming along and saying, no, the price should be a little bit lower. I mean, you might get that if you're seeking various opinions for some big procedure that you're going to do. But, I mean, ultimately, there's very little regulation. And I feel like that's what we're getting to with our current capitalistic society. Because it has become not about friendly competition in our country. It's become all about how much money can I make and how much can I push my business into the forefront and have it just take over everything. And to some extent, it's become a matter of how much money can I make. See, a lot of these CEOs of these companies and that kind of stuff are giving themselves these massive raises just because of how much money they're making off of their business. But then they're not necessarily putting as much back into the company as they should. They're not creating jobs like they're supposed to. And so, yeah, it's not working the way that it should be to its fullest extent. So that's why I personally am kind of all like, why is it such a big deal if we tax some of these super rich people a little heavier? It's not like they're suddenly going to go bankrupt if we tax them specifically. And honestly, if we tax their company, they shouldn't be going bankrupt anyway if they're allocating their resources properly. So, I don't know. I have a hard time agreeing with the people that think that we need to give those who are richer, like, tax cuts and that kind of stuff that the rest of us don't get. It does not seem fair. It doesn't seem like a viable way to uphold the economy. But anyway, so yeah, like I said, as long as we're dealing with imperfect people in this world, there is going to be imperfection no matter what kind of political, economic structure that you are trying to go for. Now, when it comes to politics, I will agree that democracy probably has one of the lowest chances of becoming corrupt. But at the same time, because of people who either are uneducated or just don't really care that much, we have a somewhat corrupt political system as well. Like, we have the Republican Party that's assumed as the more Christian, religious, upstanding group, when really they're not. They're not putting forth a Christian agenda. Sure, I'm all for having America be a great country, but Christianity is not about America first. Christianity has existed well before America has as a country, and we are told specifically that we are to, preach the gospel to the ends of the earth, that we're supposed to take care of those around us, and heck, even as much as we can, care for any other people that are less fortunate than us. And that's not what the Republican Party is putting forth as their agenda. So clearly they're not pushing a solely Christian agenda. And so, when it comes to the corruption and that kind of stuff, I think it's more just being fed by people's assumptions that they get from I don't even know where they get it from sometimes. Like, I don't see how Donald Trump became our president. I'm sorry, but, honestly, the more I see the man himself, oddly enough, the less I have a problem with him specifically. I think the issue is more just with our media and how much it spins things, and the government and how it tries to say it has a certain agenda when it really kind of doesn't. And it's just trying to do all this stuff behind our backs that we have no clue about, and it's just ridiculous. But, yeah, so I would say, really kind of, in a sense, the solution to that is don't keep anybody in Congress for too long. We've had some of these people that have made literally a lifetime out of being a politician. They've been in Congress for like 40 years, some of them. And I'm not saying that anybody that's been in Congress 40 years is inherently corrupt or anything like that, but I feel like the particular spin on things, the certain agenda that gets pushed, there's a lot more of a chance of things kind of moving away from what it should be if you have people in there long term. There's a reason we have term limits for the president. Why should those same reasons not apply to the rest of Congress? I don't know. Okay, so I think that's covered pretty much everything that I wanted to get into. Again, if there are any other... It doesn't have to be, somebody specifically that I know. If there are any other doctors or nurses or anybody out there like that can give me a little more insight into the whole healthcare thing and why things are the way they are, why stuff is so freaking expensive here in the US mostly, feel free to leave some comments down below, because I would like more info on that stuff. So, anyway, that's all I've got for you this time around, I guess. As always, like and share if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe to my channel to see more stuff as I post it. And if you want to be extra sure on that, click the notification bell and check the box to get notified whenever I post my videos. So then, hopefully you'll get an email or something that'll let you know when I've posted a video and you can stay up to date on everything. Or if you'd rather, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. I keep up with those pretty regularly. I also have Instagram. There's more information on all those down in the description. And yeah, leave comments on this topic, other topics, anything you want me to talk about, anything I've missed, anything where I'm just completely off base. Let me know. Otherwise, I guess that's it. So I hope you're all doing well, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. But in any case, stay cool, people.